All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We're back for another episode of One Up Yours on the One Up Network. This is Friday, October the 27th. Garnet Lee here. Got a great show for you. The crops are in from the field, and that means Shane is back.
Yeehaw.
Farm fed and ready to go.
Glad to be back in California.
Luke's been down in L.A. He's back.
I'm glad to be back in Northern California.
Not ever going to be a SoCal guy?
No. When I got there, they tried to explain that it was just a foggy day. And it's like, the fog is brown.
But dude, you got to hang out with Lindsay Lohan, all right? I'm so envious of
Whatever.
Wow.
You didn't tell me that.
She was there. I mean, we didn't do it or anything.
you. You should have.
She would totally do you.
Yeah.
I really like that radio show you guys do. It's awesome. Take off my top in the graveyard.
You need to put that into context so people understand.
So I'm back from L.A. I was down in L.A. At the Gears of War celebrity unveiling launch party, and it took place at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And what they did was there was all these smoke and lights and strobe lights and scary woo music at this graveyard, and they drove us around through on these big military trucks and drove us up to a mausoleum, and there was a red carpet leading into the mausoleum, so we did a whole little red carpet bit that'll be on the One Up show, hopefully.
Did you get to practice your curb stomps?
No, well, yeah, inside in the mausoleum, which was a little creepy because you're inside playing Gears of War multiplayer. And you were making a joke, weren't you?
Yeah, he kind of was.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just
asked a question.
I just went right through it.
That was great. Were you making a joke there?
No, I was pointing out to the listeners that you were.
Oh, thanks.
Skip looks disappointed.
We all are.
And you're playing multiplayer, and there's all these dead people in their little mausoleum chambers next to you, and that was a little weird.
Real dead people.
Real dead people.
Wow.
I know.
That's John Davison. He had a late night last night.
I did. It's been a rough
He's still
week.
still trying to recover.
There's a big games industry thing every year called Night to Unite. It's a big charity thing where it's an excuse for everyone to put on a suit and go and bid on crazy auction items and then get drunk.
What'd you win?
I didn't win anything.
Oh,
Hangover.
There was a rumor there was a PS3 there, but I didn't actually see it. But there was at one point.
that sounds like our editorial offices. There was a rumor there was a PS3
I don't think
there.
there was. There was a signed Xbox 360 and all kinds of junk. There was actually one thing I did consider bidding on there was a guitar signed by all the members of Styx.
That's nice.
Awesome.
So what happens is
Wow.
everyone all the companies that have anything to do with the ESA or anything to do with, or a lot of the media companies, they submit things and then people bid on them in silent auction, and then there's a big dinner, and then they honor someone, and there's some speeches, and then everyone gets out of there as fast as they possibly can to go somewhere else to go and get very drunk. But it's it was one of those anyone who's anyone. I hung out with Dr. Greg and Peter Moore, and it was just everywhere that you stumbled, you bumped into, and you're like, oh my God, you're that guy.
So was it a late night at the Clift?
3 a.m.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's all right.
Didn't
So we
even
got the
make it
gang.
home, right?
huh? No, I didn't even go home.
Really?
I got a,
That's what
I
makes
got
it
a
a good
hotel
night.
because I couldn't face going home. So I live 20 miles away.
Right.
And I had a 9 o'clock meeting this morning to meet with the Spike TV guys planning out the VGA Awards. And they met at 9 o'clock because they thought that was being friendly to all the people that were out last night.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Magic sounds coming through the system.
I didn't hear a magic sound.
It sounded kind of like a flute.
It did sound
Beautiful.
It was an
Fantastic.
ocarina.
So we got the group all together today. Rock and roll. Got a great show for you. We have the normal What You've Been Playing segment in the first part. After that, we do have John. So, of course, we have forum stuff. Absolutely, right? I've gotten so much trouble.
For not doing that.
I know.
It's been weeks.
I know. Second segment, we are bringing you the much-promised exclusives talk, which Shane has put together a whole lot of background information for us. So we'll be doing all about exclusives, PS3, Xbox 360. We will finally hit that topic, blow it out, and of course you guys will blow us up in the forums for the following week. We expect it. And third segment, we got news. Luke, nice little lineup of news here. I think you might also have something else to talk about. Maybe some microtransaction stuff in there. I'm sure that topic will come up. Skip guested this week, Attack of the Show. If you haven't watched it, he was on the loop. You can catch it. Do we have it on Game Videos?
Game Videos, it's up.
Absolutely. So don't miss Skip there. He was with Major Nelson.
His beard is majestic, though. It stole the show.
It was fantastic.
It was like a second character.
It was too distracting.
Too distracting.
From Major Nelson.
Skip said it was too distracting.
Major Nelson had to use the Oblivion defense.
That's the Oblivion
It's like the
defense.
Chewbacca defense of
I think he
Microsoft
fell
PR.
into the Oblivion. So Shane, since you've been like kind of on vacation, you must have been playing some games, right?
I actually was lucky enough to have Phoenix Wright for Justice for All, so I've been playing that, and it's what you'd expect from anyone who's played the first game. It's more of the same.
So
Great.
if someone hasn't played the first game, give them a quick.
Well, it's the lawyer game where you play as the lawyer, and it's more or less a classic adventure game. You're pointing and clicking and talking to people and going through conversation trees, but it's really well written and it's really funny and it's creative, and yeah, for as simple as it is, I find it really addicting.
I've always wondered about Phoenix Wright. Everyone recommends that game to me, and I've always wondered what the attraction is because adventure games have died on PC.
I mean, you have to be somebody who puts up with. You're basically reading. It's a reading game.
Have you ever read Encyclopedia Brown? Do that.
Yeah.
I read that when I was a kid.
Well,
Do that.
Well, you think it's so? You're saying you don't like Phoenix Wright?
No, I really do like Phoenix Wright, but the problem with Phoenix Wright is that as the plot gets more and more convoluted on a given case, gameplay reduces to like tapping through the menu as quickly as you can because like some of the case clues cease to make sense. Where at least in Encyclopedia
It does-
Brown at the
that's
end
point and click
it makes
adventure.
sense.
Yeah. So how much of the appeal
Fix
of
it.
this is just
Encyclopedia Brown.
how much of the appeal of this is just that point and click adventures on a new platform?
a large part of the appeal is the writing. Actually, 'cause
Okay, that's
it's
cool.
a game that is based
cool.
on writing, and if it was badly written, it would be no fun at all. But since it's so well,
I mean,
written.
it's where adventures have their roots. I mean, it came from text adventures.
like Zork. I mean, there
And
were no
Zork.
graphics back then, you know.
But I think the DS has a pretty good shot of actually between that and Sam and Max on Game Tap. We may actually see the point and click making a comeback.
I wish they would port stuff like Daily Tentacle or Grim Fandango, that kind of stuff to DS.
What we
I think-
don't want is what
Great.
Sierra just did with all the old Quest games, which is the guys on CGW Radio went crazy about this, and Ryan on what's now Games Windows Magazine got very angry about, because all the old games you can find them online, and you can run them in DOSBox on Windows XP. And for the last God knows how many years, that's what people have been doing to play King's Quest 3 and everything. And then when Sierra announced they were going to be doing these collections, everyone's like, "Oh, great! They're going to be run. They're going to optimize. There'll be, presumably some kind of Criterion edition, kind of everything they could possibly." No, it was just
Shovel.
all the old games shoveled on, running under DOSBox. $25. Thank you very much.
Yikes!
The stuff's doesn't even come in a jewel case. It's in a paper envelope.
Thanks,
I love the game industry.
thanks, Vivendi Universal. But other than that, I've been playing. I was home. I was home in Kentucky, and a bunch of my old friends wanted to hook up and play fighting games. And I kicked all their asses at Street Fighter, so that was
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter Alpha 2, our favorite Street Fighter. It's kind of a legend.
I thought you were a Soul Calibur man.
I was, and they didn't have.
They don't have 3D in Kentucky.
They didn't have any joysticks. Actually, my friend Rob, who's usually a very good host, did not have any joysticks, and I refused to play 3D fighting games without a joystick because will not play.
Really?
You straight up Freddie Mercury and queened out on that.
Seriously?
didn't you?
No doubt.
I do not play Soul Calibur.
Shane Benhausen does
can't
not-
play Soul Calibur.
I do not play Soul Calibur with a pad. And you can't make me.
Wow.
And apparently they didn't.
Apparently, yeah. They
Back
kind
to
of,
Street Fighter Alpha 2, I guess.
Yep.
Again.
John, you got something on in your office. It seems like every day when I walk by. What have you been up to? Something on that television in the background. You might not be playing
That's
it. It's
not
just
really what I've
something
been
on.
playing every day. Although I was fooling around with, because last week I
That was
talked about
porn.
Oh, well, that's cool.
that. Yeah, but we don't talk about that. I closed my door for that. Last week I talked a little bit about ATV.
Right?
So I've been playing the PS2 one as well.
How's the interoperability going?
Exactly, that's what I was trying out. The you can pass
That's the official term for that.
interoperability.
Yeah, not connectivity. That was the Nintendo term.
Oh, okay.
So the Sony term is more convoluted and ridiculous? I would
Shock.
never guess.
They're very good at coming up with marketable names, aren't they?
So you can race and save a ghost and then pass the ghost over onto the other platform and race there, take it with you. You can
Why?
build tracks to the track editor, pass that
Well,
backwards
you
and
could
forwards.
try to beat
and-
your best times. It's
because
self-improvement.
if ATV Off-Road Fury is your life,
Self-improvement
I'd
with
like to-
ATV.
I'd like to welcome SCEA to the show.
but that's not really what I've been spending the bulk of my time with. I started playing Splinter Cell this week.
Oh, yeah. I saw you playing it the other night, and I
did,
actually
yeah.
popped it in for a minute, too. So
I want to
you-
play some. I want to play some multiplayer. 'Cause I was fooling around just with some bots and was surprised how fast it is.
Really? That was
Yeah.
never a fast game.
No, but
It's-
now the
it's
totally
very
different.
very
the
changed.
spies are really fast now.
It's very streamlined too.
Yeah,
The gameplay.
But the single player I'm really enjoying.
That kind of makes me think that it would throw the balance off some.
Apparently
No?
it doesn't. Shoot loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
Not
But
it doesn't love it as much as the previous ones. though.
Pandora Tomorrow multiplayer. I was talking with was talking with someone last night, Jake from EALA. I was talking with him yesterday. But Pandora Tomorrow, if it had been QA tested the right way, it would have been hands down the best multiplayer game of last gen.
Really?
Absolutely. Nothing else touched it.
Pandora was awesome.
Because of the spy.
Because of the spy merc mechanic, and like John's talking about in Double Agent, it's totally streamlined. And some people will say gimped, but like in Pandora Tomorrow, you would infiltrate a building and you would like drop down into a location, and in that room there'd be like 6 different sensors. And you have to quick gun all these sensors down and then move on to the next thing. There's nothing really like that in Double Agent. Double Agent is just like a straight shot.
They've also changed everything now so that the gadgets are different in multiplayer. So the spies have this all-purpose sort of wrist computer thing, and all you have to do is just sort of look at a thing, and you pull up your wrist computer and zap it. And
so it's kind of in keeping with the way they changed the single player to get rid of the menus. It's all context sensitive now, right?
Yeah. But I'm really liking the single player, although I think the vision is a little grander than what they actually delivered on. I think they really wanted to go into the morality of being a double agent. And I mean, I haven't beaten the game yet, but I'm about halfway through, and it's all a bit sort of shoot the guy or don't shoot the guy.
Finish your mission.
Well, it doesn't matter either way.
That's great. That's fantastic.
My trust meter went up, though.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You know what kills me is that
it's a beautiful game, though. You're playing it, right?
It's beautiful. I turn it on. I always want to like these games, but the reason that I like Metal Gear so much better than Splinter Cell is that what happens in Splinter Cell is you're going along, oh, you're spotted, oh, nice time, now you're going back to the last checkpoint because you're screwed. You can't get into trouble.
Agent, if you get spotted, it doesn't matter. You just pull your guns out and just go crazy.
Well, and
really, because that happened to me. Like, so I was in the first level, and it happened to me where I got spotted like that, and they basically gunned me down mercilessly and converged on me where I couldn't get away.
You need to play more than just the first level.
I'm going to. I will get into it some. But I mean, that's always the part I've liked about Snake is that Snake, you can play it that way, but when you get in trouble. Shane, remember when we were having this conversation? Shane and I were having this conversation, and this is like one of the things that frustrated me for a long time about Metal Gear is that I would always get frustrated because I wanted to be the guy who would play it the right way, you know, like never getting spotted, all that. And Shane's like, dude, no one really does that.
I mean, people do, but it's usually you go back on your third playthrough and try to do that. It's like trying to do it the first time through is going to give you a headache.
It's just avoiding the vision cones, Garnet. That's so real.
Hey, that's really synthetic, but it's a fun game. Metal Gear is a really fun game, and I want to. This game looks awesome. Like they're really. So the part that'll draw you in is like, you know, in the first level. Is the first level the demo, by the way? And so has anyone seen
I didn't
this?
play the demo, and yet I skipped straight to the full game.
Okay, so in the first level, you come up under the ice, you know.
No, that's like 2 or 3 levels in, but it's a really good level.
Okay, so did you come up underneath the guy above the ice
smash
through the ice and pull him down and knife him underwater?
There's a lot of really visceral moments like that in the game.
God, that was awesome.
Don't you? But here's the thing: don't you do all of that by pressing the A button?
You do it all.
I'm triggering a cutscene with A. I'm pressing A, and now that's it.
Correct.
It's like totally. It's just for show. It's just for flash, and it looks cool. But I pressed one button and did all this. It
is
stuff.
for show. It is for flash, but it's really cool. The problem I have though is like, so one of the big ways to kill in that game is to jump off of a higher location and pounce on your person. Right? It's kind of like the old Tenchu mechanic, right? Mm-hmm. I was trying to do that off of a stairway, and it was like not letting me over the stair railing. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't go. We didn't figure you'd want to go over the stair railing.
It's funny, when you're talking about the controls, it's almost as if those controls are oversimplified, whereas everybody complains that MGS has like incredibly overly complicated controls where you're using 20 buttons, and I mean, maybe there's some happy medium between the two.
Something we noticed from seeing the Rainbow Six demo and playing Splinter Cell and after playing Graw is that all the Tom Clancy games are slowly converging and borrowing from one another.
Right.
Because now Splinter Cell, there's a big part of it is now, I mean, the combat is very over the shoulder. It feels very Graw-like, and the fact that you can switch, there's a left and a right stance depending on where you are. I don't remember if Chaos or Pandora had that, but it's a very, when you've got the gun out, it's a very slow, sort of methodical, and you're sort of like aiming and picking guys off with single shots, and then you play Rainbow Six, and there's a lot about the way
it looks a lot like Raw.
Yeah, the UI is very similar, but I mean they're paced differently, but you can tell they're all related now, which. It's either a good or a bad thing, depending on your perspective. I actually kind of like the fact that you'll be able to go from one to the other, and there's a connection between the Tom Clancy games now.
There's a question of how many Tom Clancy games do you want to play in a year?
That's a good question.
I think 3.
Especially if they start to get really similar.
4 when Firehawk comes out.
One every quarter, perhaps?
It's not going to be this year, though. But Rainbow Six, I can't wait for that. I haven't seen the demo.
Oh, my Lord.
Did you try it?
The demo is incredible. Absolutely awesome.
So good. You're going to love it.
I can't. Everyone's like, it's like Rainbow Six 3.
It is. It is. I mean, it's Rainbow Six 3 with nicer graphics, basically.
Good. That's what I want.
It's pretty impressive.
It has a good cover system too.
Yeah.
the other thing that messes me up in those games, and this is kind of like I realize I'm defective, especially Splinter Cell where you go between third person and first person, is in third person I'm more comfortable with a camera system that's inverted on the right stick, and when I go to first person I want Halo controls with it like direct response, and you can't switch between the two like that.
You got into first person in Splinter Cell?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Really?
Oh.
To like take out light sources and
Nah, it feels really weird.
it does feel weird.
Yeah.
So do you play invert or not invert?
Down to go up.
Yeah, so you play invert.
The right way.
Yeah.
But
I
not
play-
in first person.
I play it like a normal person, Garnet.
Well, I like
Actually,
to
no,
play.
I don't know many people that do play invert, but it just feels so unnatural to me. How do you play Halo?
Down is down, up is up.
That's the way I play a first person shooter.
I play it like you're a normal person would
No.
think about it.
I think
That's the way a mouse works. Think about it. That's exactly the way a
it's
mouse
not the way your
works.
neck works.
It's not the way your neck works, but you're not in third person. You're in first person. That's why I'm saying I have to do it.
Fuck
I
yeah,
switch
it
between the
does.
two.
I'm always in first person.
I'm looking up right now, and I would have pressed up on the right.
He's like holding his thumb in front of him, like
Nobody can win this argument.
No, there is no way.
It's whatever feels natural, and you know.
And if you play inverted, you're wrong.
So, if you're a developer out there, maybe a sophistication you need to add is the ability to have camera for third person and camera for first person separate. But that'd be really weird if you switch between views on a click. Anyway,
Need new buttons, I guess.
need more buttons.
New controller, Microsoft, make it happen.
Oh, they are.
You got to play some very anticipated games this week, Mr. Luke.
Where to begin? I guess I'll start with Gears. So I've complained a lot about Gears of War as far as they've only showed 2 areas. So finally, last night when I showed up at the Hollywood Cemetery, Mark, Rain, and Cliffy came over and we're talking about how I had to make sure I go in and check it out because they had all 10 multiplayer maps playable.
Wow.
Everything was playable, and it was still the X06 build of the game, but they sort of just unlocked the rest of it. And there's some really, really good-looking locations in the multiplayer maps. Like the first 2 maps that we've seen, Gridlock and Canals, which everyone's familiar with. It's like the city location. It's the Browns. These new maps, there's like a blue-gray warehouse. There's like a really tan outdoor zone with a bunch of like spotlights. And in the backgrounds are what were the most impressive part to me. Because everyone knows that the foreground of Gears of War is going to look great. But in these open areas that aren't these like, clustered cityscapes, there's these great wastelands in the background of like destroyed Earth, and it looked incredible. It looked really good. And I asked the art director, Jerry O'Flaherty, about it, and I said, is that just like, are you guys cheating in the background, or are you guys actually like rendering all that? And he's like, no, I wouldn't let them do that. We are rendering all of that. So they're taking up precious engine to do all of that. And there's
does the palette shift in the game, or is it always that sort of grey, brown, dirty?
Jerry and I talked about that. It is going to pretty much be that. Expect that palette.
The apocalypse
whole
is
way
not
through.
not a very vibrant place.
Well, the example he gave, the example he gave was he was likening it to like Saving Private Ryan or something like. He actually made a Schindler's List comparison as far as like Schindler's List. You get a whole film in black and white, except for like this one moment in color with the girl in the red dress. So he says when they insert color like that into Gears, it'll be for a very specific purpose.
It's particularly poignant.
Yeah, it makes it extra powerful.
Like aliens with the Christmas lights.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even the blood in the game is not like a scarlet. It's not a scarlet. It's still like a muddy blood. Mm-hmm. It's not a bright. It was good.
So you were in a cemetery playing a grey game, but you were in a great mood when you got back to the hotel last night.
Yeah.
After all the Leipzig debates, performance?
Great. It's performing fine. It's an absolute, like he said, the art director talked about the game's locked at 30.
Dude, that's a
He
great
said it's
sign
not-
for
he
that's a
said-
great sign for the Unreal 3 engine and for 360.
Yeah, he said it's set to not go under 30. He said the only times it drops under 30 are in some of the cutscenes when you're not playing the game. And he's like, not just because I wanted to add a bunch of extra stuff in there, but when you're playing the game, it should stay at 30. So
Nice.
There's a sequel or whatever that they mentioned.
Well, but more importantly,
they're
there's
doing a sequel? Shock.
They're banking on this game selling.
a lot of games that'll be using that engine, and that's huge that they're able to get it to run really well on the system right out of the gate.
Another thing that we talked about was because a lot of people, and I think myself included, and maybe all of us, complain about how like the Gears characters are like these big, hulking, kind of generic looking bald space marines. And I said, well, I asked him about that too. And he said when he came onto the Gears project 2.5 years ago, they had the Locust Horde creature was pretty much done. They knew what they wanted. They knew the size of the Locust Horde creature. It's pretty much what you get now. Like there's different versions of it that we have and haven't seen. But that was the size of the creature. And so the first version of the Marcus Phoenix type character was like a small, slight, like Sam Fisher-like character. And they said that when you were playing the game as this like sort of petite, you know, sort of femme fae type guy running around and like taking out these locusts, he's like, it just doesn't feel right and it doesn't feel believable. And you know, part of what makes something like, you know, everyone's excited because the roadie run looks really cool, or like when they mash into cover, it is really visceral because they are these big guys and they are believable as like being able to combat these huge foes. Where if you had like Sam Fisher, like some little skinny guy with a big gun, it wouldn't look right. He said it looked ridiculous, so they had to have bigger characters.
I can buy that.
Yeah, I basically went through the laundry list of art direction problems with him and talked about every single one of them.
Were there any single-player maps playable or no?
No, the same single-player stuff. And Mark and Cliffy are both really excited about how they've shown nothing from single-player and how they just were like, I can't wait to see what people think.
So you're going to tear it up next week when we all go play, huh?
Monday, yeah.
You're going to tear it up. You got like all this practice. I'm a pro. Thanks.
Monday and Tuesday, yeah, I'll be playing a lot of Gears.
Nice.
I played Luminous.
I did too. You played it after you saw it at my house, didn't you?
He messaged me yesterday and said that he was going to eat some crow today.
Yeah. Well, don't buy it, okay? Don't waste your money on it.
Kids, don't do like Paul says.
But if you have a code for it and can play it for free, maybe do that. And maybe if a friend of yours named Brian from North Carolina sends you some points, maybe get the advanced pack too, because some of the skins are really cool. But do not spend your own money and do not play multiplayer, because multiplayer is dog shit.
I heard a little rumor that if you were foolish enough to have wasted your money on this, you may be reimbursed in some small way in the future.
Really? That's interesting.
A poignant rumor, and I can't really comment on it anymore, but maybe.
Well, they mentioned this week that they were
Let me just toss that out there.
addressing the concerns.
We're talking with Shuji today. It'll be today for you guys, but like Milky's talking with Shuji from Q, because we talked to Mizuguchi this week, and he directed us to Shuji because Greg Kanessa in that interview that we talked about last week ended up saying like it's all Q's fault. So,
but what
like, really?
Wait, what?
Q's
no?
like, hey,
who?
So, I mean, it's still a mess. It's still absolutely a mess. But like, I played for like 6 hours the other night.
Right. What drew you into it?
I really liked playing it on a TV. Like, it was so much better than playing it on my PSP.
Wait, what was it you said last week?
I don't know. Can we play it back? This is the part of the program where we skip to something else.
Bitching how you played it before on your PSP and you don't need to play it on the TV?
I started playing it too. Like, I started playing Lumines with a D-pad, which is horse shit. It's awful.
I heard if you sand it down, it works.
A friend of mine was like, just use the analog pad. And so I was like, there's no way analog stick's going to work. And I started using the analog stick, and I was like, this does work pretty well. And 6 hours later, the day before I'm leaving to go to LA, I'm up at like 4 a.m. still playing.
And the surround sound is awesome.
No, I don't.
The surround sound is fantastic, especially when you get to the higher levels. You get a bunch of the stuff like strobing behind you. And, it's fantastic. It's really solid. Anything else you want to get in there before I jump into this laundry list of stuff I've tried out this week?
I didn't play it, but I checked out Medal of Honor Airborne. That was the other thing I was down in LA for.
Yeah,
Los Angeles. It's a World War II game.
Is it coming along? It's kind of slowly coming along.
It's slowly coming along. It'll sell the 2 million copies that World War II games sell.
I don't know. Maybe it won't. Medal of Honor's fallen out of love.
Yeah, that series has been bested by Call of Duty easily.
Greatly bested.
I mean, they can get their crown back.
They are doing some really cool stuff for the missions, though. The operation system and like the twofold protagonist that they have in the game, and like the airdrops are like a cool sort of nuanced thing, but you can actually start the levels anywhere, wherever you land when you drop in, which you have total control over. The level will adapt, and there's some cool stuff called affordances, which is actually like a really old term for describing how in war you approximate what's a valuable piece of cover and what's a valuable location and a valuable spot to hold. So that's built into the game now. So these enemy AI characters know like this corner is more important than that roof, which is less important than that tree, and they will sort of mass and guard and appropriate themselves a little bit more intelligently. Conceptually, it's very sound. Haven't played it yet. Got to see it. It ran okay, but it's still really early. And it's using Unreal instead of Renderware. EA bailing out.
Wow. That's a kind of interesting internal move.
Wow.
Well, they announced it a few weeks ago. They were moving a bunch of projects over to Unreal, right?
Yep.
So, hey, there you go.
Criterion.
Xbox 360 version incoming.
Confirmed.
Was there ever any doubt?
I'm just saying. But
I bet there's a
There wasn't.
Game.com version coming. It's EA.
Yeah, he's not renowned for its exclusives.
wait till they have the GBA version.
You're joking, but it probably is.
So I've sampled like a ton of games this week. I'm going to go through this list like super quick here. Battlefield 2142. Read Sean Elliott's review. Yes, it's that bad. Don't buy it. Oh
Really?
my god. Oh my god. Marcus Nielsen, if you're listening, dude, we like it. DICE, stop cranking out stuff and fix. Literally, you're on board the Titan, which is like their new mode of Titan, and their guys like sliding like a surfboard through there because they can't figure out the lag problems that they have with this shit. Oh, it's a wreck. It's a wreck right now.
Seems really ambitious.
It's a wreck. Dark Messiah Might and Magic, played that again for a while today. Nice. Wait, again, another one. You're going to have to wait. PC games. What's up with PC games and performance problems? This thing uses the Half-Life 2 engine, and again, all those old Half-Life 2 engine problems that we were having, 2 years ago when Half-Life 2 came out? Hi, they're back again.
Isn't that game the Oblivion Killer, though?
No.
No, not at all.
You're thinking of Gothic 3.
Yeah, Gothic 3 is what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
See, I watched, it wasn't you play, I was watching someone play Dark Messiah Might and Magic, and performance issues aside, I thought his problem was it's just ridiculous.
I mean, in what way? Like you're like
Ubisoft, am cry.
Well, it's, the Might and Magic franchise forced into the Half-Life engine. There's melee combat, Hexen, that didn't work.
At this point, the Might and Magic franchise is meaningless. You're saying like, I remember Might and Magic in 1983. It's completely away from the.
No, it's forcing
history.
a sword and sorcery, whatever. Pick it off the shelf, take your pick. Oh, it's guys in armor, and you kick things in this game.
You kick a lot in the combat
and
because
it
it's your
looks
spacing move.
Stupid.
It does look
Was
pretty
it just a leg coming up?
Yes.
It's Duke
First
Nukem.
person gym.
Oh, it's
And
Duke's.
you look down and there's these bad polygonal legs and feet scuffling along, and you go up and there's a guy on a ledge and it has a physics system, so I could kick him off the ledge, dude. And the leg comes out and it looks like he's doing a high kick.
It sounds like
you actually are this pissed just from watching someone play?
It's just retarded.
It sounds like it should be a third-person action adventure game.
But it's not. I mean, you can click out to a third. Can you click out to a third?
I don't know.
person on it?
I played it in first person.
But anyway, anything with melee combat,
being
particularly using your legs in a first-person game.
Let me counter this with the fact that the melee combat is actually fairly fun. The interactive environments are done really well because it is the Half-Life engine, which has Havoc physics, and so you've got all that stuff going on. It's pretty cool to, shove someone into a spiked grate or knock a support out from a piling, so that a ledge falls down on a couple of guys when they're coming at you. The combat's cool, but the performance issues are insane. On the machines we have, there are reviewed machines with 4,000 plus Athlon 64s and 512 meg 7900 cards. You should not be turning shit down to low on the Half-Life 2 engine. Come on. Anyway, on to 360 NBA 2K7 because Todd loved it so much I had to put that in. Holy crap, that game is awesome.
Better than EA's game?
Dude, it absolutely kicks EA's game out of the arena.
Did you buy the new jerseys?
I'm not going to buy new jerseys. Give me a break. No, it's not. I'm not like Mr. I'm not going to buy Luminous Live.
No, you actually did buy it.
I did it. I'm all over Luminous, dude. It was a blast. It sounds great on the 5.1. Anyway, NBA 2K7, if you like basketball, it's really cool. If you've played EA games, take the time to get accustomed to it. It's going to feel strange at first because they use the right stick differently than EA does. Whereas in EA, that's like the trick stick. The way they do that in the NBA series is you pull the right trigger and then you keep using the left stick. The right stick is all your different shots. So if you're screwing up at first, stick with it because it gets really good. And then the other game I've been playing is Rogue Galaxy, which if you're listening, we'll be listening to this on Friday. Check out the One Up show today because Ryan and I have both been playing Rogue Galaxy and we talk about it long.
I want to start playing that too.
They've
I'm looking forward to it.
overhauled it since they showed it at TGS,
Oh,
right?
they added
Extensively.
tons of stuff for the English version because they had that extra 6 months of development time. So they actually went back and added all these things they intended to add in the Japanese version.
I love them.
I don't know what I expected, but what they built is basically like Dark Cloud with a really cool sci-fi setting, which is awesome. It's
Great.
fun. It's really it's like people are going to love getting that in January because if you're an RPG player, you'll have played Final Fantasy 12, and this is the same thing we were talking about yesterday. You'll come off of Final Fantasy 12, which is super intricate and detailed and realistic graphics and all that kind of stuff, and then you'll go into this game, which has cell shading and awesome anime-style cutscenes and totally lighthearted fun and button-pressing combat, and you'll be like, wow, this is totally different.
Just as an aside, I'm happy I'm no longer the lowest reviewer of Final Fantasy 12. Several other reviews come out that gave it 8s out of 10, so...
Really?
Whatever. None of you guys know what you're talking about. It's fine by me. Whatever. Don't know what you're talking about, as our forums will rise up and tell you right now. But what else have you been telling us, John?
Some people didn't like your microtransaction rant, Luke. I'm sure
like
you read it.
19 people or something.
Shark 974 was leading the "I'm sick of Luke microtransaction rants" thing.
Did he do it eloquently in a way that I would be impressed, or is it a shitty, whiny thing?
No, it was.
Maybe if they do a collection and send you some money so you can afford the microtransactions. That'd be good.
I like that.
Something I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, just because it came up so much, particularly last weekend, right after the last show. I think there's a thread that's near the top right now that Press Continue started. I find developer interviews incredibly bland, which is sort of a part of an ongoing conversation. We can't ignore this, but there was some feedback from the Ted Price.
We took a lot of grief for that.
We took a lot of grief over the Ted Price interview, and I think it bears talking about a little bit. And Ted came on, and we made a big deal that he didn't have a PR person with him, and people were also what? And these guys, talking to them pre-release, maybe we need to not talk to these guys before a game is out. Maybe we need to start interviewing guys as soon as the game is out, so they're free to talk about stuff a little more. But there was some criticism about he wouldn't go all the way with anything, and some people complained that it was boring, and
a lot of people were complaining about him not talking to hardware issues, and I think that that's a little bit silly to think that he's going to talk about hardware issues because he doesn't work for Sony. Now, granted, they have developed exclusively for Sony platforms. They're obviously very tight with Sony, but the guy's not going to go to the mat one way or the other about the stupid controller because it's not his decision anyway. And he's delivering a game that's going to be using that platform. And he did happen to say, by the way, listen to what the guy was talking about when he's answering questions when you're critiquing him. He said, we put a lot of effort into doing Rumble feature in Ratchet and Clank. And he then, he kind of backed off of that a little bit afterwards and said, but we don't know how much we got out of it. Obviously, they thought that Rumble had some validity, that it was important. They put a lot of effort into it. There's your answer.
Between the lines.
Listen to what they're saying.
God, we can't all be blunt assholes. And the other thing, Ted Price isn't going to shit where he eats. Well, Sony's pushing our game. Sony's helping our game. They're helping us.
Sony's paying for our game?
PS3 is in a world of hurt. He's not going to fucking come on the show and do that. Be realistic in your expectations of what these people can and can't say.
But this was followed on DC. Actually, I'm noticing a lot of new names on the board, which I'm
We're
very
getting
pleased
a lot
about.
from,
We're getting a lot of new
gaming.
people, which is
That's
good.
encouraging.
So.
Be happy, Luke. Welcome to the fold, new listeners.
Yes, we're very good, and we're glad you're contributing. So DC actually followed this up with Ted Price equals great guy, and that sort of kicked off a thread. So there's a counter to it.
He's the nicest guy. He's super nice.
He is, and he really wanted to come on and talk about stuff that was important to him. So we are going to continue to try and find people, maybe not do them back to back to back the way we have been recently, but we'll try and fine tune it so we nail the timing so these guys can be as honest as possible when they come on, and we'll continue to ask them tough questions that they'll try and evade.
If he was blowing smoke up our asses, all 5 of us sat here and enjoyed a nice conversation sitting around with the guy. So he hoodwinked all 5 of us, and you know what? I'm not buying that.
I had a really nice time.
I think the problem is, the listeners might want a witch hunt. They want you to take him down, ask him all the tough questions. And
Ted Price is too nice to take down.
Yeah, if you met the guy, you wouldn't go like, "Where's the fucking Rumble?"
Well, besides taking him down, what are you going to really take him down on? The hardware is not his, and everyone who's looked at Resistance at least says that it's a good game, if not a great game. It's obviously solid. It's one of the lead titles.
Yeah,
for
we're not going
PS3.
to talk about Resistance.
Anyway,
another one. Naked Luke Smith was.
I wasn't going to talk about this.
So there's a message that was started by iAlta. And I did notice when I printed it out that the most recent submission to this thread was by someone called Trouser Snake 69.
Friend of yours, Luke.
Yeah, and it's called Naked Luke Smith. It says it has an image in it, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to be letting myself in for. But it was the picture of Luke from the next gen piece, with Luke with less hair and no beard.
Yeah,
looking quite dashing.
They're looking quite dashing, and some ladies from the PR and communications community at this event last night said that your eye is looking enchanting, Luke.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I like
It's fantastic when he looks across the table.
I
at us, isn't it?
mentioned to this one girl that she looked like she was swooning over you, and she admitted that yes, she was swooning.
that. Well,
So it's official. Luke Smith actually a hunk.
Who knew?
Who
Did
knew?
she have like a little fan she pulled out and,
She had the vapors. Thinking about Luke.
She was digging. There was a thread. A bunch of people saw Skip talking to Major Nelson on G4 this week about microtransactions. Skip doing a fine impression of the Geico cavemen.
Who knew?
Who knew?
But I don't know if
We didn't know
caught
you
that.
guys were still around.
We put the video up on Game Videos this week. If you missed it, and Major Nelson apparently thinks Oblivion was too cheap, right?
Oh, I was saving that. I was saving that for news, but I'll just go into that right now. I about flew through the screen when he started saying, "Oh, and you know, Oblivion. There was so much content in there. Oblivion was worth way more than we paid for it." What the fuck?
you know what? That's actually really good that you mentioned that, because when I was at EA, two of the guys I talked to from EA were like, "Well, when your game's as good as Oblivion's is, you should have a little bit of carte blanche with what you want to do with the microtransactions after the fact." And I was like, "This is not a rape time simulator. You're not playing Sneak King, where you sneak into my wallet and take money."
God, it's
Cut the
ridiculous.
shit.
Oh, by the way, we made a longer game. I wonder what we could jack the price up to. What the hell? By the way,
Actually, speaking of
build a good
jacking the
game.
price up, when I bought Splinter Cell, I made the mistake of buying the special edition.
What did that come with?
It's like
I'm not entirely sure.
a T-shirt, maybe.
No,
a
it
belt
came
buckle.
It came with.
they
It came.
sprinkled some glitter on the disc before
Yeah.
they finished pressing it.
So I
and
took
has
it up.
that
I took it
shiny
up to the checkout in Best Buy, because in Best Buy, what is up with Best Buy putting the 360 games in a cage with a padlock on it?
We live in San Francisco. It's a dangerous city.
Is it like that everywhere else? This is ridiculous. So
They're high price items.
I
They're $70 too.
Yeah, I just wait for
I had to
Sony
wait-
third party.
I had to
games.
wait 20 minutes for the dude to shuffle over and get the key and get it out, and he just handed me the red Splinter Cell. I'm like, well, that one, and I went and I gave it to the checkout, and they were like, with tax, $75.99, please. And I'm like, what? So whatever, all right. And then I get it home, and it has different art. It has a plastic sleeve and a second disc.
Next gen sucks.
Yeah. So I really need to get my $75 worth out of that.
You're gonna have to play it, throw
Twice.
it at someone.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna have
it
to play
hurt.
a lot of online. There better not be any fucking microtransactions on this
You know
thing.
what? There's gonna be, because Ubisoft, it's in their financials, which we'll get to a little bit later. But Ubisoft sold like 150,000 units of that fucking Ghost Recon recolored maps thing.
Oh, God.
So
Good grief!
at $15 a pop, get ready. Bend over, here it comes again.
Ow!
Maybe, you know what? Maybe Major Nelson should just tell us how much value we should get for dollar. You know, you could just like
They do. It's a point system.
yeah, and they could roll it up. You know, I'm sure that at some point in time, Oblivion might be worth $150, $200. Be like the Neo Geo. God, why not? Right? Just
But
keep on rolling
which
it up.
console will it be on?
Xbox 720, of course.
And then 6 months later on PS14.
Right. All right. So speaking of games, we're going to come back in a minute and talk about exclusives, which often drive your hardware purchases. Wii, PS3, Xbox 360. Are you going to choose based off of what games you want on it, or are you going to look at multi-platform titles? We'll be back in a minute.
You're listening to One Up Yours, part of the One Up Radio Network.
This show is brought to you by NBA 07 PSP, available now at your local games retailer.
Hello, and welcome to the One Up Radio Network. If you know the name of the podcast you'd like to hear, press 1 now. You have selected Radio PM, starring the editors of the official U.S. PlayStation magazine. To download an episode at radiopm.oneup.com, press 1 now. To listen to a promo, press 2 now. In a world ripped apart by war, only one magazine.
Daddy, where do exclusives come from?
Well, little Luke, when a publisher and a developer love each other very, very much, they get together and have a special kind of cuddle. And what happens is the publisher gets behind the developer. And depending on the size of the publisher, they either have one or two options that they can go for. Now ask your Uncle Garnet.
Garnet? Uncle G? What's the cuddle feel like?
Well, oftentimes, believe it or not, it has a lot to do with how much money's involved.
Sometimes it hurts.
Yes.
Wow, this
Sometimes,
is all getting really relevant.
sometimes if you want that second option, there needs to be a lot of money.
This can become a very big transaction to negotiate.
And sometimes the developer might think it's just with that publisher, but down the line might go and hang out with some other
Might go
publisher.
hang out with some other ones.
Wow.
That's right.
Disease and filth.
Everywhere. When that happens, it's kind of a path to ruin.
So we're going to talk about exclusives, but we thought that to start off with, we should probably go over because it's not as simple as it used to be.
Not nearly.
It's not like the good old days when Metal Gear Solid was just on the PlayStation, and that was an exclusive because that made sense. And well, I mean, even Final Fantasy, we don't know if that's going to be exclusive, but we'll go into that in a minute. So right now, Luke, we identified a number of exclusive scenarios, right?
Yeah, there's sort of like your boilerplate third-party exclusive game, just like you could say, like sort of like a Gears of War type. It's developed by a third party and published by a first party. That's like what Ted Price's group has with Sony with Insomniac. It's like it's sort of second party, which isn't a real term. Then like the new hotness in exclusivity.
So that's the good old-fashioned missionary position.
That's yeah.
Well, and in all defense, in even more missionary than that is the first party exclusive because they're doing it themselves.
And that's very important when we get into this. Like
big
first-party exclusives
First-party
are
exclusives.
still incredibly important.
Yeah, and Nintendo, huge with that. Microsoft looked to try and copy that formula because I think they identified that as a weakness in Sony's armor.
And there's also like the third-party exclusive that is not published by the first party but might get co-marketing. That happens a lot.
This is where it gets. You've heard us in the past talking about money hats, and this is what we're talking about. This is where a publisher will work with a first party, where the first party's motivation here, obviously, is that they want this shit-hot game to be only available for their platform. So they'll get the wallet out, and the money will go in one of two places. What's most common is in marketing support. It's to help get this game onto television. Particularly TV ads on exclusives, you'll see that happen a lot, and very often you'll see, and the ad always has the hardware brand on the end. If you notice, you'll always see the Xbox 360 thing come up at the end. That's very often because Microsoft has helped fund that ad. And then the other side is getting on really important games where they want to woo them. I mean, it really is about giving development support and helping the game happen, and very often helping the game happen faster because it's going to benefit sales of the hardware. And then there's these really weird exclusives.
The new exclusive.
Like timed exclusives.
And announcement exclusives.
Right. These are new.
That was a nice harmony they did there, wasn't it?
Yeah, the announcement exclusive is like the Assassin's Creed thing.
Yeah.
It's this game is coming to PS3 and we're not saying anything else about it, and then the publishers
Just ignore the controller you have in your hand.
Yeah, the publishers
Did we say PS3? We didn't mean that at all.
we never actually said exclusive.
Yeah.
But then the thing is, and it's a pretty good situation for these developers who do this, because later on they're going to get basically a second wind. They're going to get a second set of headlines when it's like, also coming to Xbox 360. It's a whole other cover opportunity. For
That's an
guys.
angle that hasn't been brought up a lot. It's true. It's very good for the publisher in that regard that they get a second boost.
But I think Ubisoft used to do this a lot particularly with the Splinter Cell franchise. They'd go really hard with Splinter Cell on Xbox. I mean, they did it with the first two. Mm-hmm. And the PS2 version would come a few months later, and they would try really, really hard to get some attention for it. And it always sort of dribbled out a little bit. And then it didn't help that it also wasn't very good on PlayStation. I think that's another thing, that the lead SKU also dictates the development environment. What the game is sort of what it leads on is very much what it's designed for. And I think we're going to start seeing that happening a lot more because of the differences in the controllers and the graphics technology. And so you
don't want to be the second platform that publisher comes to.
Right.
Well, the other thing too is the developers are often. Oh God. Oh, just dribbled down my chin a little. The other thing is developers don't often talk about what their lead SKU is. That's like a question that they tend to duck.
They dodge.
Yeah, they don't, like, you ask lead SKU on
It's a pretty sensitive question. I mean, if they go out there and side with one or the other publicly, then they're really pretty much casting their lot with that group. I mean, you can be pretty confident that if you say, hey, I'm a PS3 first guy, Microsoft is not going to be there with tech support when you're trying to figure out how to get it to work on the 360.
So the challenge right now is games cost between $10 and $20 million to make. They're charging 50.
Not on Wii.
Not on Wii, but we're talking PS3 and Xbox 360, which is where the bulk of the exclusivity war is going to happen.
Right.
They're very expensive projects. They're not necessarily going to get the money back from the numbers of games that they're going to get from you on one platform. It's why we're seeing more and more $60, $70 special editions on these things to help fund it, all the suckers like me that'll buy it. And I forgot where my train of thought was going with that.
Well, I think that
Help me, Ghana.
you're headed towards multi-platform in this generation, which is
Yeah.
a huge problem. And let's take two case examples. Let's take Need for Speed Carbon in the first place. Need for Speed Carbon doesn't look spectacular on either platform that we've seen it on, because we saw it on PS3 last week. We've seen it on 360.
And the PS3 version looks exactly the same as the other. In
Mirror
fact, and,
image.
You know, they don't look that much different from the current gen versions either.
Right.
They look
Particularly
cleaned
the
up.
Xbox
They look a little
version.
glossy.
Yeah, but
you know, that kind
they're
of
all
stuff.
kind of similar.
Right, but they're differentiating generations this time with online.
Right.
The PS2 version, I can't remember if the Xbox version has
I don't
online or
think
not,
it
but the
is.
PS2 version definitely doesn't. So
360 version has online.
Right.
no, but I'm talking about the current gen version. You look at the Xbox version of Carbon and the Xbox 360 version, and they're very, very similar. They're using, much like with Most Wanted, some of the models are the same, some of the effects are the same. So you're essentially getting, I mean, and they'll position it as, well, we have all these teams working together and they help push each other. But what you end up doing is sort of slightly gimped across all 6 versions or whatever it is that they're doing of that game.
And we've talked about it before. Both of these machines are very sophisticated. Developers will tell you each of them have strengths and weaknesses. They're, on par with each other, but they're not the same. And you cannot use the same code base to get the most out of the machine.
Well, for the other example, let's use Metal Gear Solid 4.
Okay.
Which is going to be a spectacularly expensive project for Kojima.
Yes.
Releasing at a point where there might be 5 million PS3s in the world.
Yep, that's about right.
I mean, I don't know.
No,
I don't think they're going to do it.
I think if Metal Gear doesn't come out until next November, there could be more than 5 million PS3s in the world easily.
You don't think they're going to do it, and that you don't think they're going to keep it exclusive?
No,
of course.
Well, I mean,
I don't think they've proven before. I mean, they've done Metal Gear Solids on Xboxes.
Yeah, but it was always like GTA, where
Right.
it was like 6 months later you get, and we'll throw some other stuff in there or not.
I would not be surprised if we saw a later port on Xbox 360, kind of like what we saw with Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance,
Like a special
on Xbox.
edition.
But I do not think they'll be within the same calendar year.
Yeah, I think I'm with Shane on this one. I think that Sony will do whatever it takes to keep that locked up
Yeah.
as a release exclusive.
Right.
But
A
down the
timed
road, but you'll
exclusive.
definitely see a 360 version of it.
yeah, I mean, calendar year too. That game's going to ship in probably November. So I
Right.
mean, you're giving like a month window. I don't think you'll see it on 360 until March.
But I would not expect those versions, if there was a second version to exist, to look identical.
No?
No. Because if anybody's going to take use of the Blu-ray storage medium, it'll be Kojima. I mean, he had to cut things out of Metal Gear Solid 3 up to the last minute.
And they won't look identical, again, going back to what developers tell us about, because of the way the two machines have their
Right.
strengths. Some of the PS2 has great video capabilities, and the embedded VRAM on the 360 allows it to do more stuff actually in the game architecture. So they'll look, at least that's what I've heard. What have you heard?
Well, I mean, just in terms of raw computing power, the difference between PS3 and 360
is
huge.
Isn't the way that computing power is appropriated ultimately doesn't it ultimately make it a little bit more negligible than that's sort of like a by the numbers category?
Well, I mean, the difference
it
of
does.
8 cores versus 3 and using them all.
Let's not do a hardware argument.
That's not what
because
this is
ignorant.
about.
But let's talk about Call of Duty 3 then for a minute,
Right.
because we've just seen Call of Duty 3 on PS3, and that engine was originally developed on Xbox 360.
I mean, they probably won't tell you 360 lead SKU, but it is. I mean,
Of course, it's the same engine.
Yeah,
it's the Call of Duty
It's-
2 engine. I mean, that's
Right.
how you get the game back out in the next Christmas season, right? And it was it was an awesome 360 game. It looks fantastic on high def and has great sound, and it looks the same on 360. I wasn't that impressed by it on PS3 at the event. What did you think?
I think it is negligibly lower. It looks a little worse, but I think it's good enough.
With the writer that it's not finished, by the way. It's
right.
not.
But
it's
yeah,
not
I mean,
complete.
it definitely doesn't look better. and I think most people kind of agree that it looks very similar or like slightly worse than the 360 version.
So here's the problem with multi-platform is that if you're in this generation, on the economics say go multi-platform, but the end use, what you get out of the game says you better go exclusive because by going exclusive you get the most out of the machine.
But I think we're
And the
gonna
least
see,
out of your dollar, though.
Exactly. So you got this problem. This is big problem developing in next-gen development, which is on the top consoles, the economics don't fit what would be best for making the best games. That sucks.
Well, and if you can get the same games everywhere, then it comes the question of like, well, which system has the most unique games that I can't
Right.
get other place? And like right now, the 10 best-selling Xbox 360 games in America to date, 8 of them are multi-platform games. They're also coming out on PS3.
Well, but in the same respect, the PS3 is launching with 3 exclusive games. I mean, and like 3 exclusive games and 16.
Right.
Like, I mean,
so
it's
that
the
is,
same
I'm saying
sort
it's the same problem. It's like you're getting the same games everywhere. So what's the reason to buy anything if you can get the same games everywhere? So that's where this list that I've can't come up with.
So let's
comes
pull a
into
platform.
effect.
Where would you like to start?
Well,
PS3 for Shane.
Okay.
we can start with
That was
PS3.
very enthusiastic.
That was
Yeah.
enthusiastic.
Well, I love Resistance. I like it.
Okay.
Hi,
And
Ted. I'm
God.
kidding.
so, in my estimation, and this is my opinion here, I feel that PS3 has the best mix of third-party multi-platform games that are going to be there and other consoles and first-party exclusives.
All right, what are you hanging your hat on?
In terms of third-party or
So
first-party?
back that up. What are you backing that up?
I'm hanging my hat on Sony's incredibly rich and diverse first-party lineup. They have a lot of really powerful
Folks,
franchises.
so there's no PR handler helping
No,
Shane
I mean,
here.
like in terms of first party, we have things like Resistance and
Okay.
MotorStorm and Gran Turismo, Lair, Heavenly Sword, Ratchet and Clank, Warhawk, White Knight Story, Getaway, 8 Days, Naughty Dog's Game, Killzone 2, Monster Kingdom, Eye of Judgment, Formula.
Africa. You glossed right
Africa.
over
Yeah, he glossed
Africa.
right over the Getaway 3 as
I'm
well.
about surprised that he included Getaway and HD Gran Turismo.
Also, I mean, those are all announced titles, and also on this list I came up with like unannounced franchises that we kind of know are coming to these next gen consoles because those are also valuable.
Okay.
And we have things like Jack and Daxter, Wipeout, Twisted Metal, SOCOM, Sly Cooper, God of War, and whatever the Shadow of the Colossus team is working on. And those are all games. All of those games will not appear on any other console ever besides PlayStation 3.
Okay.
So there's that. And then there's the third-party stuff. So there's all those games, those 360 games everybody likes so much, like the Tom Clancy's and the, Assassin's Creeds and EA stuff. But there's also a lot of largely Japanese exclusives, such as Devil May Cry 4, Final Fantasies, Metal Gear Solid, as we spoke of, Tekken, Virtua Fighter.
So I'm not sure Luke agrees with you on this completely. Luke, you don't think Devil May Cry 4 is going to stay exclusive for starters, right?
Yeah,
Well,
no.
but it'll definitely be. I mean, as we know right now, it is a timed exclusive, at least.
All right, well, you were just calling it an exclusive.
Well, it is.
Well, that's the thing. But see,
The only reason Luke thinks that is
glory of the
because
argument.
the only reason Luke thinks that is because they're having interviews where Capcom is like, well, we're more interested in multi-platform development, but they always reiterate that this title, specifically Devil May Cry 4, is a PlayStation 3 title, and it may down the road come somewhere else. Devil May Cry has never gone to another console. None of those ever came for Xbox. They went to PC, but. I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be surprised if in next year we see that on Xbox.
I know I'm stepping into your line of fire here, but of those games, I'm surprised at how many that you mentioned were IPs that I've already seen before. It's not like we're doing something new here. Lair is new. I like Lair.
Are you kidding me? Like, are you saying that Sony doesn't have new IPs?
No, I'm not
do you mean
kidding you.
Do you mean
That's
to name
why
you,
I
do
said
you mean to
it.
name you
You rattled
more
off-
first-party IPs that Sony has than anybody else this next generation? Like, seriously.
How many 4s and 3s were in?
Yeah,
what you
but
were
they
naming?
have as many new IPs as Microsoft or
Not
Nintendo.
in the list that you just gave
Yes, they
us.
do.
Okay.
Do you mean to name them again? Resistance.
I'm counting you, Shane.
MotorStorm. Lair. Heavenly Sword. All right, here we go. 8 Days.
Warhawk.
Africa.
Ridge Racer 7. Devil May Cry
That's not a first-party game. And I'm
4.
wait.
Metal Gear Solid
I have a
4.
Wait.
Ratchet
Okay,
and Clank
wait. Hang on.
5.
I gotta. You guys-
Hi, you have an agenda? What are you talking
Hi,
about?
apples. This is oranges.
God.
That's what we're comparing. Well, because you're talking specifically first
party.
party, non-sequel IPs.
Yes.
You're talking
Okay.
third party.
Sequel
I
IPs.
thought we were
Sequel
talking about
IPs.
exclusives for the platform.
No, you're
No,
okay.
you see that's the thing. That's why
It
that's why
gets complicated.
That's why people get banned from message boards.
It is,
It really is.
but no one. You can't sit and argue that Sony isn't making.
Saying we're going to have to ban Garnet.
You should.
No, we'd be
Sony,
screwed.
Sony themselves, SCEA is making a lot of original IPs in addition to
I agree
sequels
with you
to
on
their
that.
successful franchises they've
Okay.
known and loved for 10 years.
I agree with you on that.
All right, so that's what I'm saying about PS3. So, discuss.
Like, hey, just walking around the floor at TGS, we proved that point. I
So-
mean,
Right.
we looked at the games; they were right there in front
My
of us.
concern then is that the fight is in the hands of the platform holders.
Well,
Almost
the
entirely.
onus falls upon them to create this content as a first party, to lead the charge.
Right, but
then that
right
puts
now,
you in a pretty tough situation.
The bulk of the stuff that people are going to want, that's exclusive, that's going to make them want a particular. It's all on, like with the PS3. It's starting to look like it's all on Sony to make you want to buy a PS3.
I think what's kind of strange is from the third parties, we haven't seen a ton of exclusives, especially from the Western developers. Like we haven't seen like Ubisoft and EA or these big Activision coming out with like this is only going to be on any one system.
I don't think we're going to see that until someone says we've got 10 million installed base.
Like we're almost not seeing that at all with any of these systems, and that's what's kind of weird. So that's why PS3 has the edge, because they have Japan and because they have these really great relationships with people like Square and Konami.
If that's the case, though, let me put a chink in your armor. Of the developers I've heard talking, I often hear, wow, Microsoft is night and day to Sony for support when I'm working at third party.
I completely agree.
So that, to me, is kind of a chink in Sony's armor if Sony has to drive that wagon.
But people want to go where the money is, and unless PS3 is a big flop and it doesn't sell and there's no install base...
Okay, people want to go where the money is,
right.
and they're putting a lot of money into this development, and if they're not getting quality support and they're not comfortable with it...
That's why the third parties are making these multi-platform games, because it's a safe investment. They know they're going to make their money.
So we're back to undermining our good quality games.
We're back to that. So because of that, I think this is the future we're seeing.
Well, I think one thing to address too is that that so much of the PS3's success lies in their first party. It's a totally different strategy than the strategy that Microsoft uses, where Microsoft has said, it's totally PR speak, but to a lesser degree it's true, especially with the way that they deal with third parties, is that they look at third parties as sort of like first party partners, and that's the exact language that they use. I think as you have companies like Nintendo and Sony, Nintendo and Sony, and you look at those lists, and they do have strong first parties, there's a problem with having a strong first party, and it's not something that we've talked about really yet, but as your first party's strengthened, the need to rely on third party is lessened, and then you don't support your third parties as much because you cannibalize.
This is what happened with Nintendo.
And this is what happened with Nintendo, and this is what I see happening to Sony. Not this cycle, but going forward further. I think you're going to see Sony sort of going along the Nintendo path, but with sales.
Well, see, it was funny because the president of Namco Bandai in Japan a few months ago was like, your biggest enemy on Nintendo console is Nintendo, because their games sell all the copies and get all the marketing, and it's hard to stand out. But, what we've seen for PlayStation in the last 10 years, it's a really good mix of a strong first party and strong third party. It's always been like the best of both worlds.
I would kind of agree. I mean, they've shown a willingness to partner with people, Sly Cooper.
Right. But if you look at the history of PlayStation, things like Final Fantasy, Metal Gear, those were third-party games. Right. Those were not first-party games. They might have had some co-marketing and stuff.
I don't know that Sony, though, in this this 10-year lifespan we were just talking about, has faced a competitor that's used a strategy like what Microsoft's going to try and use. And I think that like Microsoft's continued course.
So what do you think what do you think that strategy is going to be?
Well, Microsoft's strategy is going to continue to revolve and center on like courting third parties.
I think Microsoft's first party strategy has completely changed with Xbox 360 based what we saw with Xbox One. With Xbox One, their first party was try to do everything Sony's doing, and most of it failed. Most of the franchises they created were bad, and we don't see them anymore. And the ones that were good, the ones that were awesome.
They tried it twice.
We still see, and Halo's an amazing franchise. But now they've gone more to, we'll invest in specific developers who are really talented. That's why we're seeing Gears of War, Mass Effect, and it's a much better strategy. But it means fewer games, and it's tough when Sony and Nintendo are going to be putting out maybe 10, even 20 titles a year first party, and Microsoft this year is shipping 3. That's the difference.
2 in November, though.
2 in November. Well, and because of that, that's when we get to see 8 out of 10 360 games being third-party games, and that's great. But when all those games are going to another console, I think Microsoft needs to step in and do more of what we're seeing with Splinter Cell 5, which is, as far as we know right now, a real exclusive.
Right, locking it up.
But
as soon as
you have to be careful, because some of these exclusive you hear about, they say it'll be debuting exclusively in the Xbox 360.
Yeah, like BioShock.
Right, and you have to watch the language very carefully to see what's really happening.
BioShock looks pretty impressive, by the way. I know you were looking at me because you're like thinking that I love BioShock. I mean, just the demo they got the other day, which was the same Leipzig demo. That game amazes me on the 360.
What do we know about BioShock? Because that one is very ambiguous. So it's
in terms of where
debuting on 360.
Debuting exclusive on Xbox.
It will also be on PC.
It will also be on PC, yes.
And there's no denial of a PS3 build, right?
No,
it's kind of fishy.
It's coming to PS3 someday.
But that does. I would
say that 2K Games has been very upfront about their strategy, which is that if there are platforms out there to get them to a more large installed base that they're going to approach them. They're going to put the games on PS3. I think you're going to see the exact same thing with Duke Nukem. I mean, I know everyone's going to laugh talking about Duke Nukem, but Duke Nukem is not going to be a PC-only title. They are absolutely putting it on next gen.
Wait, Duke
It's
Nukem's
going to be
be
an Xbox and PS2 title, too.
Duke Nukem's going to be a title? Are you sure?
Marketing is going to start a year in advance for that game.
Good idea.
So in a couple of years it'll start, because I think they said the release window is like, 2 to 3 years. But I mean, so a company like 2K is embracing the multi-platform, and that's because that's what financially makes sense to them. And they're a publicly traded company. They're watching their shareholders. They're thinking of it in terms of monetary angle and not game first, although they are putting out a great game. I mean, there's a lot of faith to build a BioShock, to let them go loose and do what they want to do with BioShock is a lot of faith in the developer.
You know, as we're moving on to talk about 360, I have this list here, and a lot of the really awesome exclusives for 2007 are actually these first-party games that got pushed that were originally slated as 06 games. And so because of that, 07 has a lot of good releases, and you have like Forza 2, Halo 3, Alan Wake, Crackdown, Mass Effect, PGR.
Well, he didn't lead with Halo 3. I mean, you were talking about Xbox 360 not having big exclusive. I don't know that there's any platform short of a Nintendo platform with Zelda that has the connection that Halo has.
Halo's infinitely more powerful than Zelda. It's not even in terms of sales.
I think Mario's.
Look at Wind Waker.
Mario's
sales.
actually more
like
powerful.
3.6 million versus Halo's sales. It's not even a dent.
As one game, yeah, Halo is sells 4 million copies, and that's amazing. But like as a brand, Mario's more valuable than Halo.
Yeah, well, Mario has 35 games come out every year.
That's true. But what I was going to do about this list is, surprisingly, as much as we talk about 360 being this third-party system up until now, 07, a lot of these are actually first or second-party games, and they only really have like a handful, as we know right now, of true third-party exclusives coming next year.
And Microsoft has taken very much an approach with their game studios that are internal of wanting every shot to be a home run, and they've missed. I mean, frankly, they've missed. Fable, everyone had tremendous expectations.
It was a big success, though.
1.2 million.
Yeah, it's one of the best selling. It's one of the best selling Xbox games.
In terms of them making money on it, they did fine.
Yeah, it was
okay. In terms of the game,
I think Fable was a solid 8.
I'm not sure that that's what they were intending for when they were building the game.
But do you remember the uproar when we gave it an 8?
I thought it was a good score.
Because everyone, I mean, it was kind of what we're going through right now with the 360 audience, and that anything that gets a lot of hype, everyone wants it to be a 9 or a 10 out of 10 game. And when you dare to question the maybe they didn't deliver on the vision here, it was just uproar. And I think, but I mean, from hearing you guys talk, it's almost like you're saying, competition's probably not all that good.
Because
what you're saying is that you're sort of forcing people off into these different areas, and it's not the way it used to be. And I'm not sure that's really I think what's happening with GTA is an interesting case study we haven't talked about.
That's a new angle, yeah. The exclusive content,
where the game is being worked together. It's obviously going to be. I think it's going to be. From what they've said, it's going to be developed using tools that work on both.
Rage,
and then you take it off in a different direction with the with the extra stuff that you deliver on, or maybe with the online component, or
a couple of Microsoft points.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, so what's about that, if people don't know, is that GTA 4 will come out the same day for both 360 and PS3, and will have different exclusive downloadable content that's unique between the two systems. So you have to, if you have both systems, as a lot of us do, you have to weigh well, which one do I want more? Which content do I like better? Where does it look better?
And even in discussing that, though, because I talked with someone at Microsoft about this recently, there's some very specific language that is being used for the type of content that they have exclusive. Like, it's exclusive episodic content.
Right.
So that's going to be one kind of
that you
content.
Will have to pay for.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Through the nose with points. It'll be my birthday then. Someone send me points.
On the PS3, it's actually real money. You know what you're paying.
Well, it's gonna they're like, yeah, it'll cap at about $15. I bet you a lot of it's about $15 on the PS3. When you look at when you look at game prices in general, it's gonna be PS3 is an expensive leap in gaming.
So the big difference between this generation, and last generation, we heard a lot when the PS2 launched was games are going to be a lot more expensive to develop. The $10 million development game is coming or whatever, and it came really fast. And now we're up into these massive investments, so that the pressure now is that these things have to do so much more to pay for themselves, and the hardware's more expensive.
And that's going to be a big part.
So when Geronimo was on a few weeks ago, he was talking about the luxury they had with Bully, where they pulled the plug on next-gen versions and they pulled the plug on the Xbox version because they wanted the luxury of having the 100 guys in Vancouver or wherever they are focused on one SKU of one game And for the next couple of years, it's going to be difficult. A third party either needs very deep pockets in order to do that, or it needs to be getting a fuck ton of money out of the first party, or we're just not going to see it happen. I mean, right now, if Metal Gear is exclusive and if Final Fantasy is exclusive, it's because these guys are betting big time on not only the game coming out and doing very, very well with the install base at the time, but it lasting a long time. I think that's something else that we're going to see. The expected, I mean, Ted said the expected shelf life of a game is less than 6 months. Well, for these things to survive for the next 3 years, it's going to have to be a lot more than that.
And what's the significance of the next 3 years?
Because there's not going to be enough pieces of hardware out there. I mean, like you said, like a really good game sells to 10% of the install base.
So here's something that I've been thinking about while we're talking about this. We're still very much in the infancy of this next generation, which pretty soon will be this generation, right? And it's a generation that's going to be significantly different from last generation in a number of ways, but one of them is the cost of the hardware. At this time, probably a good number of the people who are listening to us at home have a PS2 and an Xbox. So they had both platforms. I'm not confident, at least for those 3-year period, at least, that while the console is still very expensive, that people will have both machines. Well, I don't think you're a gamer necessarily. I mean, there's a group that will, right?
Well, I think right now, I mean, the success of the 360 is a lot of it. The people who are playing 360 are people who played Xbox, and it's a lot of PC more into gamers. And the goal of them is to bring in new people who didn't have Xbox, who were PlayStation people or Nintendo people. So I think that's what has to happen. Is like you can't keep selling the same games to the same people, and that's what Nintendo has been very successful with the DS. It's reaching out to these new people, and they've been immensely successful. And I think that is what has to happen.
But I think one of the problems that this develops for the gaming community is, and I'll come back to you, I'm sorry, but one of the problems this develops for the gaming community is you were talking about pushing people into groups, and if we are pushing people into groups, and if we're not at a price point where everyone can have both consoles, you're starting to splinter a hobbyist community. Mm-hmm. That's very detrimental to...
And I just want to clarify what I said earlier. I wasn't saying competition is bad. I think when we talk about it like this, it makes it sound like that's the argument. And it's very much...
We need competition.
We need competition. These guys need to be driving each other. The hardware guys need to be pushing each other. They need to be pushing each other to drive prices down. They need to be helping developers to drive cost of development down. They need to be providing tools so that the million art guys they need to put out Final Fantasy have tools that render faster and allow them to do things faster. So they're not, I mean, like, these think that the volume of assets, you talk about filling up a Blu-ray disc with assets. When they start compressing that shit and putting it on Blu-ray, when you're talking about 100 gigs of assets by the end of this generation, the army of guys generating that stuff. I mean, you remember when the Final Fantasy movie was being made and they had that render farm out in Hawaii?
Yep.
And they had like hundreds and hundreds of guys.
Art slaves.
I mean, that's what PS3 game development is going to be like by the end of this generation. And you can't have a game costing $30-40 million.
No, you can't. And here's another interesting idea. So we know how much these consoles have cost to put together, and we're all very comfortable that these consoles look fantastic. How quickly is the technology going to advance to a point where you could build a better console for this for much cheaper money? Is there a potential that this generation of consoles, by the time it was able to take hold, could be completely bypassed by the next
That'd
generation?
Be awesome, because this gen could just start over then. We could just rethink everything.
Hypothetically, is that completely inconceivable? These machines are going to be very expensive for the near future, and possibly for the midterm future. There's going to be exclusive splintering in the market. People probably aren't going to have both consoles, and all the while, tech is going to be pushing forward, and the cost to manufacture that tech will drop, but the old tech never gets cheaper. You don't ever see old video cards getting really cheap until lay down the road.
And PS3 and Xbox 360 aren't going to sell well. Like, people freak out about the Xbox 360 numbers, and I'm telling you now, Sony's NPD figures for September on PS3 next year will look a lot like Xbox 360.
So they'll race through. They'll do the same thing. They'll race through the hardcore audience, but after the hardcore audience goes away,
200,000 units
in this depressing post 9/11 economy. Who knows?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
But that is an argument people have, that people aren't willing to spend $400-500 on a system. So because of that, maybe we will be the one that.
Once they get past and you know what? And there's an argument for that, because once you get past the hardcore element, how willing is Joe Gamer, who buys 4 or 5 games a year, to walk into Best Buy or wherever and drop $600?
I mean, just witnessing the success of DS, like when I was home in Kentucky among these regular people, we were at my friend's house, and like 8 people pulled out DSs and we played Mario Kart and had a great time. And while I was home, I saw commercials on TV for Mario Kart and Animal Crossing. These are games that have been out a year. and they're still successful.
All right, so I cut you off. I apologize.
Well, one thing I was going to say with Shane, when Shane was talking about how the DS has expanded that market, it comes back to is Nintendo. I mean, we haven't talked about Nintendo's list yet.
Yeah.
Is Nintendo's list going to expand theirs? Because I see Nintendo capturing the same people over and over too.
That's kind of funny. I was making this list. Nintendo has like the highest percentage of exclusives of any console. Well, that's because they make all the good games for it. I mean, Nintendo themselves has they have 20 games, and
by its very nature, the Wii makes exclusives.
Right. And do you really want to play a multi-platform game on the Wii? Do you really want to play Splinter Cell on a Wii? No.
Call of Duty 3.
Don't tell Ubisoft that.
Well,
14 of them things are coming out before March.
Yeah, so that kind of idea, Ubisoft porting all their games down, porting the PS2 versions over to Wii. Maybe people will buy these, but are they a good example of what the system can do?
So the whole argument, I mean, we're going to have to draw this towards a so what's happening right now, and we talked about splintering the entire audience with exclusives, and the fact that the hardware is very expensive, and that right now exclusivity is driving the cost to gamers up. So it sounds like what we're actually arguing is that someone really needs to win for this to work.
Kinda.
There needs to be there's not
Someone
really
needs
room
to demonstrate market leadership.
Right. That 3 systems in the market is at least one too many. But I mean, aren't we getting to a point where probably by next generation there just needs to be a games machine?
Well,
So,
or a unified game language.
To what you
Right.
just said, Garnet, someone needs. What was it you said?
Someone needs to demonstrate market leadership.
What would be demonstrating market leadership right now? Besides hitting your pen on the table for the audience.
Yeah, I'm not an analyst. What would be demonstrating market?
It has to be. Well, let's think of what a market leader would have to do. It would have to be extremely aggressive.
Yes.
It would have to be something that sells your system and installs your system to the mainstream in order for you to pull ahead. And at the tech prices that all this is, no one can afford to do that. The financials came back and Sony made what, $18 million last quarter, something like that. It's something just embarrassing. Microsoft, say what you will about them, that company still made $3 billion last quarter.
Right, but we're not talking about Sony Computer Entertainment and Microsoft Game Studios.
No,
we're talking about Sony, who.
But all that money is good. All that
Sony
money
had their laptop battery recall, which cost them like $1 billion.
Hojillions.
No, but I think what has to happen is we'll just see what happens, because in 2 years, whatever system between PS3 and 360 has the obvious edge in sales, and there will be one. It isn't going to be neck and neck. I really don't think it is. I think one of them has to win.
I think it's going to be so close.
Whichever one.
I think Luke's right. I think
You think
it's
going to be close?
I think in North America
you a
it's
t-shirt.
going to be really close. I think North America is going to be a bizarre market. Halo 3 has such sway here. There are and I think that people
among people who bought Xbox, among the people who
I
ended
disagree.
Xbox.
I think Halo 3 has made a name for itself in the broader community.
The only game last gen that sold more than a game that said Halo in it said Grand Theft Auto, and you can get it anywhere.
That's true.
In
except
America.
for Pokemon. Pokemon actually outsold both those.
Pokemon Wii.
But
Pokemon
the overall market's changing, and this is probably another topic. But I mean, what we're finding also is that these guys, Microsoft has started down the path of finding new markets. They're in India now. They're moving into Russia now. They're moving into China. I mean, there's new markets with different tastes. I mean, we get very hung up on, Halo in the US and the way the Japanese market is ruling the PS3. But when China kicks in, who the hell knows what's going to happen there?
Piracy.
Zune.
But it's
Zune games.
But, and who knows? The PC could bounce back and completely cock everything up.
I mean, I think the best scenario is they are both successful, which I think is going to be true, and that both of them continue to make tons of amazing first-party exclusives, and that gives you a reason to actually own them both if you're a gamer.
But ultimately as a gamer, that's what it has to come down to, because you want to have the best experience for each of your games,
right?
Regardless of whether it's a first party game or third party game, you want to be able to have the best version of Call of Duty 3. You want to have the luxury of, if you're getting a multi-platform game, last gen, if you were buying a sports game, you bought it on Xbox because the load times are better. You bought it on PS3 because it didn't lag as much. I mean, or PS2 because it didn't lag as much. That's it. There's the barrier to entry right now is what, like $1,000?
And John, you interjected with PC, and I think that it's an argument that you made, so I give you credit for it, is that's part of the Microsoft plan. Mm-hmm. Part of the Microsoft plan is making PC a gaming platform alongside 360, so that when you look at the monetary equation as a publisher and you're thinking about where your exclusive is going to go, you're thinking not just 360, you're thinking the Microsoft platform, and then you have a bigger install base.
And we talked about this a couple of months ago, but if it is neck and neck between 360 and PS3,
Then 360 wins.
then 360
Because
wins
of that.
because of the market share that PC adds to that. In that, if they go after aggressively and we get more of these Shadowrun kind of deals where it's like put the game out on both, they're basically interchangeable, then suddenly Microsoft's influence over development and the market and retail suddenly becomes way more, because that PC stuff will nudge them over the edge, and they will be in a position to start
Let me go
calling the
George
shots.
Orwell on you, and they win, and Vista becomes the gaming platform ultimately that everyone unifies around.
Oh God, then we lose because there's going to be microtransactions galore. God, make it stop.
People
That's
don't
just
like
being
talking about
Orwellian,
that
but I mean,
anymore.
really, I mean, ultimately, if they won, wouldn't they eventually turn it into more of a operating system sort of thing, and then let people build the machines, because they don't really want to build machines, do they?
I don't. This is the next gen
Dystopian
conversation.
future.
All right. So
Let's shake
in the
crystal
current
ball and
future,
come back.
we have an ample list of news to bring back on the other side, including plenty of transaction stuff. And just because I've talked about it before, I printed out a little thing about HDTV sales, which relates to this. So we'll pick that up in the next segment. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey, kids! Podcasts are here. You've been hearing about podcasts? You like podcasts? You've been reading about podcasts? Well, we got a podcast. Jeff, don't we got a podcast?
We do have a podcast.
CGW Radio.
CGWradio.oneup.com.
What's that? What are those URL things?
Podcast.oneup.com.
Whoa!
You can also get it at the iTunes Music Store.
Whoa, wow!
All right, and we're back, and we want to leave you, before we leave you from that last segment, we know we got way out, far into the future, and far afield from what we wanted to be talking about with exclusives, and I think that's just kind of indicative, as John was talking to us here at the break, about where this conversation goes.
Yeah, I mean, we know we didn't conclude. I mean, we didn't go into it wanting to reach a conclusion. We did actually go into it, and what we meant to do at the end of that segment was toss it over to you guys, because this is a debate that is going to continue until something in the market happens that I don't think we can predict right now. But we do want to know what's important to you guys on the exclusive front, and what's influencing you. I mean, now the consoles are nearly upon us. You know, why are you making the choices that you're making? And you tell us, and we'll follow up with it next week.
What, you don't think we ended that segment well? I thought we Halo 2'd it.
All right, so since I teased it already and it kind of fits in with next gen, why don't I do the little quick HDTV?
Yeah, tell me about HDTVs.
So apparently now, according to USA Today, 1 in 6 households have an HDTV. So it's like a big improvement. It used to be 1 in 14 2 years ago. Now
That's pretty good.
Now
So
it's 1 in 6.
16.6%.
Half the PS2 installed base has an HDTV.
Right. So, but here's the concern that they have when they're talking about it is that 26%, or at least a quarter of these guys have 2 in their house, because it's apparently only people with lots of money that have HDTVs. The average household.
Does anyone here at the table have 2?
No.
Nope.
Working on my first. Saving.
Who has 1?
I have 1.
Okay. Only Luke doesn't have 1.
Tells you something, doesn't it?
I have Skip.
So apparently,
Are we going to be having a conversation about something later,
I have
Luke?
Skip.
apparently we all make lots of money, because the average household income of people who own HDTVs 42% above the average in the America. So
In the America?
in the America, the America.
Garnet Lee demonstrating his vice-like grip on the English language. America,
Thank you,
country of champions.
Luke.
We're going to go and solve that terrorism problem.
I'll be unveiling my plan later. For now, just know, stand strong, stay the course.
Americans, just be true.
Anyway, I just think it's interesting. It plays a big part in next gen, because obviously the kind of people who adopt HDTVs are the kind of people who spend $500, $600 on a video.
How many? Do you have a number on how many people have to buy new HDTVs to get to 1080p? Is that now? I'm just checking. I just want to know for my own notification.
How many of you are really in HD?
Well, and the thing is, we talked about this earlier this week, last week at your house, watching football. You, me, and Skip. Almost every HDTV commercial that came on was like, now 1080p, the Aquos, the Bravia. And it's like 1080p is like now the bullet point of an HDTV ad. Never mind.
It's really ironic on broadcast where there is no 1080p in broadcast standards. It's like 1080p. Oh, that's right. It's either 1080i or 720p in broadcast.
You're like, Dancing with the Stars looks so much better in 1080p.
Upscaled from 720.
Yeah, right. Anyway.
This conversation's boring.
Yes, news.
Well, this is going to continue to be boring. Xbox Gold subscribers to start getting premium content first.
Get your money's worth, Xbox Gold subscribers.
The thing
And
is,
what do you get? Commercials?
you get time to pay up for early access to demos and trailers, and
And they just got something, right?
yeah, you got the new Gears of War trailer with the Mad Love from Donnie Darko, right?
Yuck.
Mad World.
Oh, yeah.
Previously a Tears for Fears
Was
song.
Mad Love a Matchbox 20 album? Where did I get
Mad
that
Love
from?
was a band, I think. Maybe.
So I don't know how I feel about this actually. Like, I don't really have a okay, cool. I pay for Xbox Live. I would have
It's a
probably paid for it
gesture.
anyway.
It's not a strategy, it's a gesture.
Now I can download stuff a little faster.
Well, we
'cause
were all
there are a bunch of
asking-
freeloaders getting it.
Yeah, we were asking, like, what can they do to differentiate Xbox Live Gold now that almost all the services that it offers are free on the PS3's online service? And this is something they can do, is give the people who have it early access to things.
The answer to the question is simple. We talked about it last week. Hosted servers. Make the games work better.
Make the games so gold. You play with your gold buddies on dedicated Microsoft.
Dedicated Microsoft servers make the games play
That'd
better.
be a good idea.
What if for being a gold customer you didn't have to pay for cheat codes?
That also would be awesome.
No, let's pay for cheat codes. Let's pay for in-game money.
Let's actually, you can do both. EA's The Godfather, Garnet. Wow. And that's this triumphant, exaltation from Skip.
Man.
There's a level 4 pistol, like a tier 4 weapon that you can get in The Godfather, and you can get it with $300,000 in-game dollars, 100 points, or you can.
You know where the
buy
silly
money.
shit's going? Pretty soon it's going to be, by the way, 200 Microsoft points and finish the level you're on.
No.
It'll be like you're on level 2.
You know what they should
finish
do?
level 2 for
No.
any point.
You know,
200
back in,
Microsoft points.
back in the old days when your arcades, you died. You want to continue? Cost some money. You want to continue? Cost some money. There you
Wow, Dragon Lair DLC.
go. There you go.
Luke has this look on his face like I stuck a dagger in his...
He's seeing the future, and it's an ugly place.
Well, it's sort of a testament to what Skip was saying on G4 this week
Yes.
when Skip was talking about how, like, to Godfather on the 360, you're already paying the $60 for it. No, I'm still paying for it.
Man, Skip and I were talking about this. Freaking Live should not be someone's economics test tube. We already know the economy of games. We already have a set value for worth. That's why you don't say stupid things like, it's an experiment. No, it's not. That's why you still don't say stupid things like it's an experiment. That's why you don't say stupid things like Oblivion should have been more expensive. And that's why you don't let the market settle Live. If the market settles Live, it'll kill Live.
It's the freedom of choice, Garnet. That's what Xbox Live Marketplace is all about.
That's what the
Freedom of
terrorists hate,
choice.
man. They hate our freedom.
It's an abortion. Sony's profits take a nosedive. Is anyone surprised? Remember the whole battery thing?
It's getting worse. They've already had to recall more and more.
Yeah, this is not Game Group.
This is Sony Overlord.
So this plays back into that story that we reported on a few months ago where so much of Sony's future hinges on the success of Blu-ray, which they've now hitched to PS3, so much of their future hinges on what happens with PS3.
It's true.
Scary.
So that's Sony's future, but Sony hurt someone else's future this week when they sued Lixang, those importers, and Lixang said that Sony made us close down.
Roger Chang and I were just talking about this. Do you believe this? Do you think that's what happened?
No, I believe Sony when they say we totally didn't close Lixang, which was the headline that I put on One Up. Just because I thought that's kind of how Sony was, because Sony SCEE told GamesIndustry.biz that Lixang did not contest the case, i.e. they did not turn up and therefore incurred no legal costs. We have been awarded substantial costs against Lixang, which have not been paid. We would therefore strongly deny that our actions have anything to do with this website.
The interesting thing is here that there was a site called ForgetSony.tk that listed a bunch of stuff about the legal case, and they also issued... They actually reprinted a statement that the guys at Lixang had said where they published names of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe executives.
Oh, we published that list too.
Oh, you did? Good.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah.
Who had bought Sony products from Lixang.
I would like a listener who's versed in international law to explain to me why a ruling in Great Britain would be so dearly detrimental to Lixang in Hong Kong.
Well, Great Britain owned Hong Kong for a very long time.
But they don't anymore. I mean, they're
Not anymore.
So how can that one event put them out of business?
Sony, Garnet, I don't know how you can't see this, it's so obvious. Sony's protecting European consumers from this dangerous
dangerous
outpouring of aggression.
Gray
It's
market,
not just
gray market
importing,
imports.
It's grey import.
Gray market.
That's right.
You don't want grey imports,
And-
dude.
I don't know. Gaddafi might raise his head and want one of those PS3s.
How many of the 100,000 PS3s that come out next month are going to be sent over to Europe? None now. None.
Because Lixang not going to be able to
Done.
supply them.
Except for the one that's, making the tour over there of the PR places.
Yeah, they have one.
We talked a little bit earlier about Ubisoft's financials, and Ubisoft always does this. Whenever they release a financial report, they always slip in. They just reach around and slip in a little nugget of information. The nuggets.
They reach around and slip in a nugget.
That's disgusting.
Sometimes if you pull that nugget out really fast,
Jesus.
God.
The little nugget.
That's where exclusives come from.
What they slipped into this report was that Assassin's Creed, which was originally slated for March and was one of the big things that I was looking forward to about next year, is getting bumped.
Are you really surprised?
No, of course not. That game's so far from being done. Are you kidding? But Gra 2, we get that instead.
Woo! I'm pleased about that.
It's going to be. Do you think it'll be like a retouched version of Gra, like the map
I'm
pack?
sure it'll be spectacularly different
And fully feature rich.
exactly.
And a great platform for adding microtransactions.
You know what I would settle for? Online mode that doesn't crap out every 5 seconds.
Ooh.
Hey, this could be the testing for the gold service with servers. They should do that.
They should absolutely do that.
Like, so people should listen to
because
you,
that's because they think that online is where they rule the roost, and peer-to-peer is not going to cut it.
No, peer-to-peer Gra didn't work.
Epic Games. I hung out with Mark Rain last night. One of the first things.
Really, you haven't dropped his name 6
one of the
times
first
already
things
today.
he said to me. I'm doing it for him.
He and Lindsay
he
Lohan
called
were
me a
spooning.
pussy.
Hey, by the way, Mark, are you rocking a new phone yet? I mean, Mark's big on the tech side. He always was he rocking a nice PDA phone or something?
I didn't see him on his phone at all.
Really?
I saw him only with drinks and Lindsay Lohan on his arm. And that was it. And he said that Epic cost Microsoft $1 billion. When they
I love this story.
When they made Microsoft put in 512 meg of RAM instead of the previously planned 256. Okay.
Whatever. If they pull it off, good for them, because that's one of the strengths. I mean, that is actually the big strength that every developer says that the 360 has, is that RAM that's on the chip. It's right there. Boom. That's the big deal.
The week started off with some controversy about Bully, because it was sort of uncovered that in Bully you can, as sometimes curious boys do. I heard.
What are you looking at me for?
Because you told me this. You told me about this.
You went to an
He's
all
one
boys
step
school.
away from. He's one step away from my friend.
Yeah. So
my friend told me that
Often boys go to schools like that.
Yeah.
there are only other boys.
Well, there's a kiss, I guess. There's a couple characters a couple dude characters that you can kiss if you're playing. What's that kid's name?
Luke,
Jimmy
it was
Hopkins.
just a kiss, Smith.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, like, that's what that was the tagline. It was like, it's just a kiss. What harm can be done by a kiss? Because people were freaking out about this. And like Jack, that lawyer guy.
You nearly said his name then.
You did nearly say
his name is
that was
forbidden.
very close.
It is, yeah. So a bunch of people freaked out about it, and people even on our site freaked out about it too. Because what?
Well, Bully's going to turn him gay. What do you want?
Bully, a gay simulator.
Hey, they had to have something, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, I almost wonder if the guys at Rockstar sort of do just sort of sometimes slip this stuff in because they know when it gets uncovered, it'll be like a whole second wave of PR for their game, and if it's just like
a bit early if it was intentional.
Well, I mean, it's obviously intentional to kiss dudes in the game. There's like 6 of them you can
the
kiss.
sort of release of the information. I mean,
I don't know.
That sometimes happens with boys.
Boys kissing. We live in San Francisco, for God's sake.
San Francisco or anywhere. I mean, come on, people. Stop being discriminatory. Get out of frickin' 20th century.
If it was
Jesus.
2 girls kissing, that game would have sold 10 million copies.
Hot.
Now.
But you know what? Good job, Rockstar. Way to actually be normal and look at the big picture of the real world and not be prejudicial pricks.
Well, and one of the things I was trying to get across in the story was this isn't something this isn't content that just there's like a tutorial,
right?
Like how to court Joe. There's nothing like that. It's not like that.
It's so
like the only way you would find that is if you were like genuinely being curious and trying to uncover that on your own, and that's a pretty accurate simulation of like what people think happens anyway.
If you're inclined to think that way, then the game just lets you play that way and enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. Stop being discriminatory, people. Jesus.
Microsoft is going to, maybe, they're not saying yet, they might just pick up where Fox and Universal left off and finance their Halo movie.
That's a lot of money.
$145 million.
How many games could they make with that money?
Which developer?
Bungie.
2.
How about Silicon Knights?
7.
7, yeah.
You know what? That's so doable for them though, because that's one of the things. Their stock actually has been in doldrums for a long time because they have too much cash on hand. Investors actually look at them and say, "You have too much cash on hand. It's a bad thing. You should be spending that on stuff." Well, here's a new thing. It could be the launch of the Microsoft Pictures Studio.
It's risky though.
But what better franchise to launch their picture studio with?
Then a franchise
when you have a partnership with Peter Jackson.
Jackson partnered with Peter Jackson. Launching the Halo movie is the beginning of the Microsoft's movie studio empire.
Could be.
But I don't think the Halo movie is like a guaranteed home run. The main character does wear a helmet the whole time. They bring that up.
Maybe not in the movie.
Maybe not in the movie.
And the thing was too on Bungie, like when the news circulated about the studios bailing out, Bungie, like the Bungie.net update wasn't remotely, upsetting or disturbing. And they said, actually, when you do finally get to see the stuff that Weta has already made, you will probably pee a little.
A little?
That probably made you pee a little just hearing that.
I did, actually.
I'm not falling for Frankie's ploys and tricks. I'm immune to that stuff.
He says.
Burning Crusade. We knew about it here, and Blizzard announced it this week that it's done. But January, not shipping this year. But does it matter?
Well, they're missing Christmas.
There's no such thing as Christmas when you play an MMO because you'll buy it whenever it comes out.
Speaking of the bully kiss and that kind of bigotry, can we talk a little bit about the Burning Crusade character redesign?
Yeah, the Blood Elves.
God. They're redesigning the Blood Elves because, and this is a quote from someone that works at Blizzard, the male Blood Elves looked a bit effeminate.
They look too swishy.
Elves are usually a little bit,
so they beefed them up a bit so they look a bit more butch.
And you know what? They really kind of messed them up because they don't look. They look like humans. They look like humans now.
They look like humans. Yeah.
They look like
instead
humans.
of looking like Dragon Ball Z characters riding chocobos.
But I mean, Gay Gamer went crazy about it, and gay gaming communities went crazy about it. Obviously,
up in arms
because this is like the Gay Guild being shut down again. It's like, we can't have effeminate male characters. What? That's just insane.
Yeah.
John Davison, all for effeminate males.
It's like there's no one to argue with you.
I could introduce you in some Final Fantasy titles.
Well, Kotaku had the. Did you see the side by side?
Yeah.
Where there's a side by side, and the old model for the Blood Elf male is very sort of slight and well dressed, and the new one is very jeans and a t-shirt.
I like how you added that well dressed. Reads details.
Yeah, reading details. Walmart. Skip put this on here. I'm surprised he's even here today, not at Walmart. Do we have those?
The one
in
San Jose is they've confirmed they have it. They have 7 copies right now.
Guitar Hero 2 on sale. Go
2 weeks early. But they're breaking street date.
Call first.
Your mileage may vary. Did we have anything else other than
what's the deal with street dates in video games anyway?
I don't know.
Is that really necessary?
What's with that? Are you going to do a Seinfeld for
No, I really wasn't intending to.
They're not a street or a date. What's the deal with street dates?
So that when you work at game retail, you can take it home early and act like you're a badass. Yeah.
Do you want to come over and play some Guitar Hero? Play YYZ? Yeah, sure. That's a great idea. Let's do it.
Oh, they're not a street or a date, and that's right there. You can just use that as the beginning of your forum post on boards.oneup.com when you're telling us about this episode. What do you think, Luke? You good with that?
I'm okay. Remind him to go to the new iTunes Music Store. We got it's all pretty now. We have a ugly kid at the center of it.
Big picture of Luke in the middle of it.
Yeah,
that's going to sell a lot of copies of this podcast.
Yeah, well, when we start selling, we'll have to get a new face.
So we'll definitely dig into the threads. We'll absolutely look at the thread about exclusives. We might even comment on it in a week or two down the road. But until next week, we're out.